welcome. I appreciate you coming here for this yoga, mantra, and meditation class. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, just because mantra and chanting has been a really big part of my practice over the past, I don't know, kind of since I started. The very first Buddhist tradition I practiced in 20-something years ago was very much centered around chanting. And so my whole contemplative life, my meditative life has had that element to it. But recently it's been a very big part, especially the past 5 to 10 years or so. And it's a really integral part of the yoga tradition, and really all spiritual traditions, is there's some aspect of chanting. But just some practicals to get started. So we will be meeting for 4 weeks, consecutive weeks, from 7 to 8:30. And if you can't make it, it's okay. I'll be sending out a recording the next day. Even if you're here, you'll still get the recording. Everybody will get it, and they'll be available indefinitely, because these might be things that you want to come back to. And I'll also make a recording of the chant for you as well, just as a standalone thing for you to have as well. We'll be doing all 3 of these things. We'll be doing some, sorry, another person. So we'll be doing mantra practice, some chanting practice, and you'll be muted, so you can chant as loud as you want. You're not going to be heard by me or anybody on here, just because when we turn the volume on or take the mute off and chant together, it gets really cacophonous, because it's the timing and just that doesn't line up, and it ends up being very unpleasant. So you'll be hearing me, and that'll be it. But it should still be really nice. It's nice to chant together. I've run some chanting groups online, and it still is very impactful, and I still really enjoy them anyway. So we'll be doing some chanting. Tonight there's going to be a little bit more talking, perhaps, just because I want to introduce the topic, and then we'll do some meditation. Not a whole lot, just right after the chanting. I find it nice to sit, to feel the vibration and integrate the meaning, the material. And then we'll do some asana practice, some posture practice, some yoga practice. So you will want a yoga mat. Tonight we're not going to really use any props, so you'll be okay there. But I'll try to remember to include any props that we're going to be using that night in the email that I send out with the link and the PDF and everything. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to say here. I'm sure something else will come up. But before we start, are there any questions or any concerns, any logistical things, or anything that anybody needs to bring up? I'm assuming everybody here got the link, so hopefully there's nobody that's not getting in. All right, cool. Well, great. I'm glad you're here. Again, this is a topic that's very close to me, and we're not going to have a whole lot of time to get super deep into the actual chants or into chanting in general. We'll just be touching the surface, and I hope to possibly in the new year do a more in-depth workshop, just because we just don't have the time. And so really the intention of this is to get your interest going, perhaps, and maybe give you some practices to do, and if they resonate, then there'll be some more stuff for you to participate in later on down the road. But chanting is something that, as I said before, is common amongst most spiritual traditions, at least the ones I know of. And there are really 2 things that chanting served as purposes. One of them being a way to pass on the teachings and to memorize the teachings. It's much easier to memorize a teaching or a scripture or something if it's in a rhythm or in a rhyme or in a song or something like that you can carry on. And so many of these scriptures that we see, the Vedas, the Upanishads, all the Buddhist scriptures, all of these were originally passed down from generation to generation, from teacher to student, through chanting practice. And so originally, monks would memorize thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of text. usually just from repetition, from hearing their teacher, and then they'd repeat it. And this would be how they would transmit the teachings. They would transmit the Dharma. And then the second thing is that mantra is meant to be a way to bring people closer to divinity, to the divine, to the transcendent, to our essence, and to the center, the essence of who we are, as not just as humans, but as our connection with all of creation or all of life. And so there's this vibratory resonance that is meant to line up with the vibratory resonance of the universe. And so the idea is kind of like we're out of balance or we're out of sync with the universe, and then we bring these universal themes, these names of God, these transcendent topics into our field, and we vibrate with these particular syllables or these particular sounds in order to begin to resonate with life. Otherwise, we're not congruous with life. And so that really the idea is to kind of come back into naturalness, come back into our relationship with nature, with the universe, with God, if that's something that a language that you like to use. And so in Sanskrit, in the Indian tradition including Buddhism and Hinduism and Jainism, the word mantra actually is a combination of two words. And so there's a manas, which just means mind. As if you're yoga practitioners, you might be familiar with chitta. The word chitta. And chitta is different. Chitta is like heart mind, or our feeling mind, our experiential mind. And manas is more like the thinking mind, the mind that's constantly moving, constantly going, creating thoughts, moving through this space. When we sit down to meditate, we notice how quickly our mind's moving and how much material is going through, and we don't know where it's come from. This is manas. And then tra means vehicle or instrument. And so mantra is a vehicle or a way or a method to begin to focus the thinking mind into one place. And so bringing all of these fragments, all this randomness that's going on in the mind into one place. And so we focus the thinking mind into one place with sound, with vibration, with the body, and all of these things are naturally present. And so when we line up the mind with those physical things, then our mind becomes present. And then the added bonus here is the sacredness to the words of these mantras. And so there's many teachers who will talk about it doesn't matter what words you use, because it really doesn't on that level of gathering the mind. You could say your own name, or you could say, like, I had a teacher who used to say, you could say Coca-Cola over and over again, and it would still have the same effect as saying a sacred word in that respect of gathering the mind. But then there's also this transcendent part of it as well. And so words like Om, or words of gods, or words of these transcendent aspects that go beyond our thinking mind, this is the bonus of the mantra. And so if you want a little bit more out of the mantras, or a little bit more out of the chanting practice, this is available for you as well. So many of these are prayers. Many of these are devotional songs to particular transcendent things. And so you can do that if you'd like to, but you don't have to. That's the nice thing about these practices, is that they're very adaptable. And so just kind of going back to the thinking mind, the thinking mind is always thinking. And most of these thoughts that I know many of you are meditators, or you've attempted to meditate, or you're yoga practitioners. If you watch your mind, it gets really frustrating, because you can't stop your mind. You can't stop the thinking. You can't stop the thoughts, which gets very frustrating. And we don't really know where these thoughts are coming from. Most of them are not even from us. They're the thoughts of our mother or the thoughts of our society or the thoughts of our culture or something like this. They're just there. We have no ownership of them. But what typically happens is that we take ownership of them and they have this dramatic negative effect on our well-being. And so they're useless. So these things are going through our mind all the time and they serve no purpose but to frustrate us. And so the really valuable thing for me with mantra has been to bring about an intentionality to the mind. And so the mind isn't constantly going through these meaningless, useless thoughts. I add some intentionality to my thinking or some sacredness, add a sacred name or a sacred word or a chant that's going through my mind throughout the day. And then I'm not kind of going over and over and over these meaningless thoughts that serve no purpose. And it changes you. It changes your mood. It changes your mind, the way you act in the world. It changes all of that because you're no longer ruminating over something you don't want to be ruminating over. You're intentionally bringing something into your experience that holds some value. And so this has really been one of the main things for me with mantra that's been so valuable. When you're waiting in line at the DMV, it's like frustrating. You can spend a whole afternoon there, and instead of just going over and over again, this frustration with having to do this, you have a mantra, you have a meditation method, or you have something there that helps you to hold that sacred space, that sacredness, because nobody wants to be there, and the people who are behind the desk probably don't want to be there either. So we're all in this situation, and so how can we make the best out of it? And so we bring this sacredness to life through this intentionality. So yeah, there's so many benefits, and we don't have time to go over all of these, but there's this sacred quality to the Sanskrit language, and there's this vibratory quality to it that's extremely beneficial. So we have these vibratory, these energetic qualities, these physical benefits, psychological benefits, emotional benefits, and this deepening the connection with the divine or the transcendent. That's really important. So that's just a brief introduction to chanting in general. And I like this idea of using the mind to move into transcendence or move into something that's beyond the human, because really that's what we're doing in any spiritual practice, any meditation method, any chant, any yoga practice that we're doing. We're using this mind here more skillfully in order to point towards something that's bigger than us. And so I like this quote from Nisargadatta Maharaj. It says, "We use the mind to understand the mind, to eventually transcend the mind." Yeah. So really what we're attempting to do is to get to know the mind, to begin to understand the mind, the movement of the mind, our patterns, our tendencies, our reactions. And mantra helps us to do that. Yeah, so before we get into the actual mantra that's the theme tonight, I wanted to talk about Om just for a minute. And we're all familiar with Om, right? Let me share my screen here. Om. All right. I think I shared it. Yep. Yeah, I can see that, right? Cool. All right. Well, there's this Om, it's kind of used a lot in yoga classes and in pop culture. Pretty much anybody who's mocking a yogi or a meditator knows this mantra, Om, very short mantra. And it's praised and talked about in this Mandukya Upanishad, which is really beautiful. If you have a chance, I'd recommend reading it. But the syllable Om has many, many, many meanings. And the Mandukya Upanishad talks about it, Om, as being everything. It's all there is. But kind of bringing this back down to earth a little bit, we'll leave earth again in a second, but it's usually talked about as the sound of creation. That's how you'll hear it talked about a lot, or the sound of God, or I like to think of it as the white light of sound. So if you think of what white light is, white light contains all the colors of in the spectrum. And what Om represents are all of the sounds that at least vowel sounds that a human can make. So if you see down here, it's, this is the sound, this shape here, which is the first letter of the Sanskrit alphabet. And really, it's just a matter of opening your mouth and just making a sound. It's just uh. So this is which is in the back. If you go you'll feel it in the back of your throat. That's where it begins. And then the next letter, the Sanskrit in the at least in the vowels, is or u. This u here, which starts a little bit further up the mouth. And then is at the very front. So it's this moving forward of sound. So it's aum, aum. So it takes up the entirety of the mouth. That's really what it's about in a language sense. Is it contains the entire Sanskrit language and alphabet in one sound. And so you just start from that very basic primalness, that om, om. So really the spelling, you'll see it as A-U-M, but usually you'll see it like this, O-M, which is a representation of the A-U-M. It just shortens it. And that the A, it represents the waking state, like our conscious state, this Zoom state that we're in right now. And then the U represents a sleeping state, or a sleeping state with dreaming. And then the M represents sleep without a dream. And then the silence after the Om is sort of like the transcendent beyond all of those things. And so these are like states of consciousness on this world. So we have a waking state, we have a sleeping state where we're dreaming, and then we have a sleeping state where we're not dreaming. Those are basically the states that we can be in as human beings on this planet. And then then there's this transcendent fourth, which is the silence that transcends all three of those things. And so that's where Om is leading us. It's leading us out of the relative view of the world into this more ultimate, or this expansive, this universal, this beyond the human. And that's why they call it the sound of God, because it's the sound of creation itself, which I think is a really beautiful thing. And so one of the major meditations in this tradition is to just try to find Om. So you just sit and listen, and you try to listen for the Om. Yeah, and you do that by chanting the Om first, getting familiar with the Om as it feels in the body, finding that vibration. And then, perhaps one day you'll actually hear that universal, and you'll be able to like meld with it or vibrate with it. That's the idea. So it's this leading us from the relative into the absolute, into the transcendent. I think is a really beautiful thing. Yeah. Yeah, the eternal sound of creation that reverberates through the entirety of the body and all creation. And we are nature, sometimes as humans we think we're not, but we are nature. And so we have the same vibration as nature. And so this Mandukya Upanishad here, the syllable, the askara, Om, is all this, all this. To explain further, what is called past, present, and future is all just Om. Whatever else there is beyond the three times, past, present, and future, the three times, that too is all just Om. Again, this Om, this fourth, beyond, yeah. All this is Brahman. The self is Brahman. Brahman is little b Brahman. There's a big B Brahmana, which is a god, but Brahman is synonymous with the universal or the transcendent or the Tao or God, if you like to use that word. So Brahman is the universe. That's how it's most commonly talked about. So this is a very sacred syllable that I would highly recommend working with. Just chanting it over and over again. It can be a really powerful practice, and it's really powerful in groups as well. So yeah. And if you have any questions, just you can just start talking. I don't mind that. Or if you feel better about it, you can raise your hand if you have any questions at any point. And so here for this week, we're going to learn this mantra. It's called the Shanti mantra, is what you'll hear it called, which means peace mantra. And it's very much a protection mantra or protection chant. And I'll go through it. Hopefully this isn't too tedious. I'll try to make it as practical as we can. But so just down here is this mantra. It comes out of what's called the Taittiriya Upanishad. And it's commonly used as a devotional prayer before classes in schools or before a teaching, something like this. It's a protection for the teacher and the student. But it can also be chanted whenever one is seeking guidance or protection from their most inner teacher, or for their most inner teacher. Because the peace mantras, they not only create peace within, so we create the peace within, but we also create a field of peace around us. This is one of the really beautiful things about practicing compassion or peace, is that we become more peaceful, but we also create a field around us. With some people, you can actually feel it. You can get into certain people's presence and you can just feel safety or feel peace or feel compassion. But they also, when we're cultivating peace within or compassion or love within, over time, that starts to create a field around us that people become used to, become safe with. So it also becomes a protection chant. So not only for you, but for everyone around you. People feel protected in your presence when you're emanating peace, right? So the chant can also be useful for the beginning of any undertaking, as it can remove potential obstacles embedded in the mind. So as with any chant, through repetition, the mind begins to calm, and this allows us to commune deeply with our true essence, which is the goal of all yogas. Yeah. And so this chant it removes blockages. Many of the chants do. So we're protecting ourselves from many things, but I like to think of it as protecting ourselves from our own limitations. Yeah. From our own fear, and creating peace with that fear. So I'll just we'll learn it here in a bit. I just want to talk about it a bit more. So Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karava Vahai Tejas Vina Varitamastu Ma Vidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the first line is Om, may we all be protected. May we all be nourished. May we work together with great energy. May our intellect be sharpened. Let there be no animosity among us. Om, peace, peace, peace. So this, some important words here. So this Saha means together, and na means both of us. And vavatu means protection or to protect us. Now, it never talks about who is protecting us. So we can think of the both of us as being the teacher and the student, or your inner teacher and yourself. But there's no indication of what's protecting us. But what's interesting here is that there's no gender in this at all. So it's basically saying, may it protect us. And this it is a big I, big T. And so that it can be interpreted as Brahman. So I just talked about Brahman as being the universal or the transcendent or the universe or God or however you want to think of it. So that can be, so sometimes you'll see this, may Brahman protect us. So that's an interpretation. So you can fill that that whatever is protecting us with whatever you want, whatever you want to protect you. And so Om Sahana Vavatu, Om, may we all be protected. Or may we be protected. And then Saha again is together. And Bunak 2 is nourish. May our time together be nourishing. May we nourish one another. May we all be nourished. Again, nourished by what? By our whatever we're learning together, but also from this source, from this Brahman, from this universal source, from this transcendent source. So there's protection, and then there's nourishment, and then kind of the action begins next. So the third line is Sahana Viryam Karavavahai, and this is Viryam is energy, and again Saha is together, and then Karavavahai is generate. So may we together generate energy, or may we work together with great energy. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we got protection, we got nourishment, we got activity. And then through the protection that allows us to nourish one another, and then we create energy. And then the tejas vina varitamastu. Tejas means bright or brilliant or light. And then vina varitam means to attain. And then astu is may it be. And so may we attain lightness, brightness with what we're learning. Yeah. So may our intellect be brightened or sharpened by what we're learning. So we got protection, nourishment, activity, attainment. And then when we attain things, sometimes there can be conflict, right? When we think we know a lot and another person thinks they know a lot, and then we get together, that can cause conflict. And so this is in here too. So vidvishava, and then ma is not, it's a negative. And so ma vidvishava is may we not have conflict among us. So vidvishava is conflict, or conflict amongst us. So may we not have that. And then Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we, by these steps, by these actions, may we create an ambience of peace around us. Pretty cool, right? I think. And so I really like this nourishing line, because it's not just talking about may the teacher nourish the student. It's like, may we both be nourished by our interaction together. May we, it's always a both. In many ways, both people are the teachers, both are the students. Yeah. And so, and if we're thinking about this as our own inner teacher and our own outer teacher, that works as well. So as I nourish my inner being, my expression and my outer being becomes more nourishing for others. And as I become nourishing for others, that nourishes my inner being as well. And so there's this There's this mutuality that happens when we come into alignment with what is good, what is peaceful, what is nourishing. So I really love that. It's really beautiful stuff. So there's a lot in this. There's a lot packed into this, and we could go on and on about it, but I think we should probably just chant it, and then it's kind of a very basic, one of the most common chants you'll hear. So we'll just go through. I know I can't hear you, but I'll just say the lines, and then you repeat it, and then I'll repeat it with you, and then say the line, repeat it, and then we'll go back through. I'll chant a line, and then you chant it. I'll chant another line, you chant it. We'll probably do that twice, and then we'll do it together a couple times. Is that okay? All right. I'll make it bigger. All right, so Om Sahana Vavatu. Om Sahana Vavatu. Sahanao Bunaktu. Sahanao Bunaktu. Sahaviryam Karava Vahai. Sahaviryam Karava Vahai. Tejas Vina Varitam Astu. Tejas Vina Varitam Astu. Ma Vidvisha Vahai. Ma Vidvisha Vahai. And then Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. And just a word about Shanti. It means peace. But Shanti is, when you pronounce it by itself, it's Shantihi. There's this aspiration on the end. But when you chant them consecutively, you shorten the I. So it's Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. So that's just a little thing I picked up recently. So yeah, so we'll chant it. I'll sing the melody, and then you repeat it, and we'll go through. We'll see. We might go through it twice. Om Sahana Vavatu. Om Sahana Vavatu. Sahanao Bunaktu. Sahanao Bunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvina Varitam Astuma. Sorry about that. Tejasvina Varitam Astuma. Ma Vidvishavahai. Ma Vidvishavahai. There's a couple different ways to do those last two lines. That's why I messed it up and I get confused sometimes. So we'll just go through it again. Om Sahana Vavatu. Om Sahana Vavatu. Sahanao Bunaktu. Sahanao Bunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvina Varitam Astu. Tejasvina Varitam Astu. Ma Vidvishavahai. Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. All right, let's go through it. We'll just go through it together. Yeah, we'll do it twice. Actually, we might do it 3 times. That's pretty traditional, I think. And so let's exhale together and then inhale. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Varitam Astuma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Do it again. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Varitam Astuma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. One more time. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditam Astuma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's do one last Om. Om. Yeah, let's just sit here for a moment, feeling that vibratory quality. Perhaps you feel it kind of moving through the body. This is what we want. We want to chant with the whole of our being. And just allow yourself to feel the aliveness. Of this moment, this breath, this environment. At the very center of this experience is the simplicity of the breath. As you settle and the mind comes back in, moving, thoughts scrambling. Perhaps you bring back in the Om, the internal Om. The internal being our most direct connection to the eternal. Let's take a nice big inhale through the nose, filling up to a comfortable amount. And just letting the air go out of the mouth. And again, inhale. And exhale. Once again, inhale. And as you exhale, you can slowly open the eyes, allowing light and vision in. And maybe even bring the palms together. Anjali Mudra, a little bow. All right. Thank you all so much. So I want to get down there on the ground and do some movement, but I wanted to see if anybody had any questions or any comments or anything.
Adam, I was just wondering. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just wondering about the extra you added at the end, that just feels more complete for you, adding an extra
Yeah.
Is there more to it than that?
That's it. I just like the so.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's not, I've never, I don't know. They usually just end with the Shanti, but yeah, that's all me.
Is that the chant that we did in Yin's training?
Mm-hmm.
It's at the beginning of every class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I did not recognize the words, but then when I actually started saying them out loud, I'm like, oh, I know this. This feels like familiar and comforting. And it's very neat the way that did. I'm like, oh yeah, I know this one.
Yeah, a lot of the youngsters do this chant.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. This melody is different though. It's the more traditional melody, but yeah, I like it. Cool. Well, if you have any questions throughout the week, you can just always email me, or I'm happy to talk about these things. It's what I do. So let's get on our mat, and we'll do a little movement and try to integrate this into the body. And yeah, we'll start on our back. Not going to be doing anything too big, nothing too strong. Mostly going to be on the ground. So yeah. Cool. Is my sound still okay? Can you hear me? Good. Cool. Okay. Yeah, so we'll just start in a Shavasana shape and just getting used to this different orientation. So going from sitting for that long to lying on the back is quite the transition. And so we feel gravity and the weight of the body, and no use, we don't have to support the body in any way. The ground's doing all the work for us. And so we feel that gentle pull, or that gentle embrace of gravity here. And as you do this, just notice if there's any places where there is a holding or tension, or places that don't want to give in to gravity. And there's not really any, you don't have to do anything about it. Just noticing is enough. And usually through the noticing, there's a release. Mm. Yeah. And then when you're ready, just walk the feet in, bring the feet flat, feet separated about, I don't know, hip distance or so. And then bring the arms into like a goalpost position, or a cactus shape. If that's too much for your shoulders, you can always go a bit wider. Bring the arms out wide or at an angle. Perfectly good. So you might feel some opening in the front of the shoulders, the chest, the collarbones. That's nice. And we're just going to do some simple, just pelvic tilting, pelvic rolling. And so just roll the pelvis toward the tip of the tailbone. And so you have some extension in the spine. So the low spine rises up away from the ground, the tailbone grounds. Yeah, and then roll away from the tip of the tailbone, kind of guiding the back of the pelvis along the ground toward the lumbar. And then lift the tailbone away from the ground. The pelvis will lift off the ground just a little bit. Yeah. And then roll back to where we just were. So rolling along the back of the pelvis toward the tip of the tailbone. That arch happens in the back. And then we roll away. And so finding a rounding in the low back. Let's keep going with this. So we inhale into the extension or into the arching of the low back. And we exhale into the rounding of the low back, the flexion. Yeah. And just keep going like that. If at any point you want to stop and observe, feel free to do that. But something you might notice right away is that the head is moving. And so as you inhale into the arching, the chin probably moves toward the chest. And then as you move into the rounding, the chin probably moves away from the chest. We can allow that to happen. Yeah, and as you come into the rounding and the chin moves away from the chest, just let the jaw go. Yeah. And so just undulating the spine. This undulation. So waving through the spine. Really nice movement to do whenever you can. Yeah, every day, hopefully. All right, and then just come into neutral, just pause. Just pause, yeah. And just extend your left leg along the ground. Keep the right foot where it is, and then bring the arms nice and wide. Yeah, and so we're just gonna continue with this sort of repetitive somatic movement for a little while. And so let's press into the inner right foot. And then draw the knee across the midline towards the left. Keep grounded in the inner right foot. And then reach out of the right fingertips, look over at the right hand. And then come back to center. Yeah. And then inhale, press into the inner right foot. Draw the knee across the midline. Push into the inner right foot and allow a nice big arch to happen on that right side, rib, pelvis. Look over at your right fingertips and then come back. Yeah. And so once you get used to the movement, you can begin to move with the breath. So you inhale into the twist, sort of a twist. And then you exhale to come back to the neutral. Yeah. Go slower, maybe than you think. You feel like you want to speed up. And so you start to feel this connection between the tips of the fingers and the sacrum or the SI joint. This really nice long connection of tissue. Yeah, keep moving like that. Yeah, good. A few more of those. Again, if along the way you need to stop anywhere, you want to stop after you come into the end of that arching before coming back. Please do. Again, this is yours. Good. And then you can switch sides. So the right leg extends, the left foot comes in. And so I call this a protection chant. It's, a chant, but what are we being protected from? We talked about who we're asking to protect us, but what are we protecting from? Yeah, and I think the main thing we're protecting ourselves from are fixed views. I think when we're learning, that's the danger. That's what causes the conflict that comes later on in the chant. We learn things and then we fixate on them, or we become rigid about them, including in our yoga practice. And so whatever we do, we always keep a beginner's mind or a questioning mind, knowing that once we think that we know it all, we can be 100% sure that we don't. That's a sign. When we think we know everything, that's a sign that we don't. Because the more we learn that we do not know. Yeah, so we're protecting from being fixed, from fundamentalism, from rigidity. Yeah, and so come back to center. Let's lengthen the legs along the ground. Bring the arms beside you. So Om Sahana Vavatu, may we be protected, teacher and student, inner and outer, from being fixed. Yeah, and then walk the feet in. Same as the first position we did, and then bring the hands behind the head, interlace the fingers behind the head. Just a different arm position. So again, continuing with this somatic movement. Now press the elbows into the ground. And then just as we did before, roll the tip of the tailbone to the mat. So again, creating that arch in the low spine. And then exhale, roll away from the tip of the tailbone, press the lumbar down. Now bring the arms in towards the head and then the elbows toward the knees. Yeah, and then inhale, come down. Spread the elbows wide, move into the arch, tip of the tailbone, and then roll away from the tip of the tailbone, press the lumbar down, arms in towards the head, chin to chest, elbows to knees, and then keep going like that. So we don't want to turn this into a crunch. It's not a crunch, though it's very similar. Our main intention here is to pull the head forward to get a nice big stretch in the upper spine, neck, maybe between the shoulder blades, really the whole spine. And just keep going like this. Again, inhaling on the arching, and then you exhale on the rounding. Yeah. Yeah, and then and that next line is about nourishing and allowing life to nourish us. And even when life isn't going the way we want to, sometimes that can be the most rich learning environment that we can move into. Sometimes in the challenges, that's where we really learn. That's where we grow. That's where we're nourished the most. Yeah. One of my teachers, his name's Ajahn Chah, meditation teacher, Thai forest tradition. He said, when you can't go forward and you can't go backward and you can't go sideways and you can't go up and you can't go down, that's when the practice begins. It's very true. So life is allowing life to nourish us no matter what situation we find ourselves in. Okay, next time you come down, just lengthen the legs out, bring the arms beside you, pause, notice, feel through the body. So in these movements that we're doing, allowing them to be not rigid, uh, not fixed. Allow them to allow the body to flow with it, so that we may be nourished. Yeah. Yeah, and when we do this, the energetics of the body begin to move more efficiently. Yeah. All right, so let's walk the feet in again, both feet. We're going to sort of combine the two movements in a way. Yeah, so let's just bring the arms out wide. Yeah, and we're all probably familiar with windshield wiper. We're going to do that, but in a more intentional way. So just let the knees fall over to the left slowly. Press into your inner right foot. Create that arch. Reach out of the right fingertips. Look over to your right hand. And then come back up to center. And then go to the other side. So press in the inner left foot. Arch the spine. Reach out of left fingertips. Look over at left hand. And then come back. And keep going like that. So we're pressing into that inner right foot. You can let the other knee fall down, controlled though. And you come into that arch and think of the knee, that top knee moving forward rather than down. So if knee moves forward, that'll create lots of space in the low back and the sacrum. It'll come back up through center. Yeah, just keep going at your own pace. Again, not being rigid, feeling your way through as if you're like moving through the dark. Yeah, feeling your way through. Yeah, and then just come back through center. We're going to add to this a few more little movements here. And so reach the fingertips up to the ceiling. And then grab opposite elbows. Now just move the elbows together over to the right and pull your left elbow to the right with the right hand. You might feel a little stretch along the back underneath the left shoulder blade, and then come back through center, press the elbows to the ceiling, and then come to the other side. So just rocking side to side. See if you can keep the elbows and the shoulders fairly in line. Right? It doesn't have to be exact. It's just so you're not moving all over the place. At first, at least, you might end up doing that. So we got this movement down. Now we're going to combine the two. So we're going to come back to center. Let the knees come to the right and then move the elbows to the left. It's a little twisty time. Yeah, and then come back to center. Let the knees fall to the left. And try to remember all those things, that the elbows move to the right. Remember all those things of pressing it into the inner foot, top foot, and the knee coming forward, the back is arching, and all that stuff as you move. And just keep the gaze, keep the head looking up to the ceiling. Yeah. So getting to know the mind, learning here. Sometimes these little movements can bamboozle us a bit. And now we're gonna move the head too. So keep the head moving with the knees. So the head moves with the knees, the elbows move in the opposite direction. Yeah. So adding a little bit more confusion, perhaps. I'll come look at you. Yeah, nice. Good. Fun stuff. All right. Yeah, and one more thing, try to confuse you even more. Let the eyes follow the elbows. So the knees and the head move in the same direction, and then the eyes and the elbows move in the same direction. Yeah. Neural pathways. You get confused, you might have to stop and regroup. Okay, let's come back to center. Lengthen everything out, bring the arms beside you. Maybe a few breaths, and just notice how this feels. I know this isn't the most vigorous yoga practice you've ever done, but it's extremely nourishing. Yeah. And so allow it to just be what it is. Okay, so we're gonna do another one of these little unwinding movements, and then we're gonna come to the belly. But yeah, this one I really like. It's very nice for the shoulders. So let's bring the right foot in flat, arms wide. Now bring the right hand to the right shoulder. Yeah. So just bend at the elbow. Right hand to the right shoulder. Now we're gonna do the unwinding. So press into your inner right foot and move, bring the knee past midline. Now slide the right hand along the chest, along the collarbones, to the left shoulder, to the left arm, out past the left fingertips, and then come all the way back. Yeah. Yeah, and then go again. Pressing, pressing, pressing. You can press hard against the inner arm along the collarbones and the hand and the fingertips if you want to, or just brush it. Yeah. And all of our yin meridians, Chinese medicine, upper meridians here, the heart. Yeah, just brushing, reach. It's a really beautiful movement. Yeah. And again, allow this to be, to express itself however it needs to. Yeah, keep going with that. Good. And then just come back through center. And we'll switch sides. So lengthen the right leg out, left foot in, right arm out, bend at the left elbow, left hand to left shoulder, and then begin to come to the other side. Yeah, it's nice, slow, soft rhythm. Yeah, just feeling that. Yeah, it's such a nice movement and nourishing the body. learning the body. And these movement patterns might be different than maybe what you've done before. And so there's a learning here. Yeah. And again, if another sort of variation starts to happen, that is good. I am merely suggesting things. Good. Nice. And feel free to keep going if you'd like, but if you're ready, you can come back to center and just lengthen everything out. Bring the arms beside you. Shavasana. And a few breaths. All right, so from here, let's just flip over to the belly. Yeah, and yeah, just lie flat and stack the hands, bring the forehead to the hands. Again, a different orientation. So just feeling that difference here, gravity working in this different body position. So we observe, notice, feel. Yeah, and now just let's tuck the toes. Tuck the toes and press the heels back. It doesn't have to be strong or aggressive. The knees can stay down. They could also float. And then allow your the front of your pelvis to ground, even kind of pressing down through the pubic bone. And you can rise up onto your elbows. So it's like Sphinx, just a little more active. Yeah. Grab opposite elbows or bring the forearms out in front of you. And lightly press the elbows down. Your shoulders draw away from the ears lift. So the back of the neck lengthens. So we don't want to crunch the back of the neck. See if you can just lengthen the whole neck. Soften face, jaw, eyes. Again, this isn't aggressive with the legs. It's just a little bit. If you want a little bit more sensation, you could engage the belly slightly, just drawing the navel towards the spine and then up towards the sternum. Now, if you'd like to, you could slide the toes back and then just bring the heels above the knees. Yeah. And I like to just pump the ankles a bit. So you can press the heel to the ceiling and then point the toes to the ceiling. You can also roll the the ankles around a bit. As you do it, just observe and notice how when you move the feet, it doesn't just affect the feet or the ankles. You might feel it further up the leg. Yeah. And then this is release down. Stack the hands again. Forehead to the hands. Okay, so let's come back up. I want you to just bring the hands underneath the shoulders. Yeah, and just let's see if we can draw the shoulders away from the ears. And just come up into a bit of a cobra here. And press the tops of the feet down. Bit of a cobra, and then come back down. And then come up and down a few times. So come up any amount. You can come up high if you want. And come back down. Something I like to do is come up under the fingertips. Yeah, you come up. Any amount. Can be higher. And back down. One of the ways we can remove rigidity is to move. Yeah. And then you come down and stack the hands again. Yeah, and then just bring the arms beside you. We'll do the same thing, but in Shalambhasana, the locust. So you can come up and lift everything, arms and legs, and then come down. If you want to, you can interlace the hands behind the back, lift up. Yeah. This is so good. Strengthen these low back muscles, really all the back muscles. Open the chest. A few more times. Good. And then let's stack the hands, forehead of the hands. All right, let's bring the hands back underneath the shoulders and press back to fours. And just move here. So through some cow and cats, or circle the hips, whatever feels right. Child's pose might feel nice. Move through the spine, low back, hips. Yeah, and just plant your palms, tuck the toes, come up into a downward dog. Got to get our daily dog in. If you haven't done one yet today. And then it can be nice to just drop the heels one by one. Yeah. Nice healthy bend in the knees, perhaps. You might find some stillness in your dog just for a few breaths. Good. All right, let's come on down. Yeah, sit back on your heels and we'll just drop over, come into a seat and give you a choice here. So wide legs or feet together. So one of these two things. I always like to start fairly lifted just to kind of feel the roll of the pelvis. Yeah. And then when you like, you can begin to come forward. You can stay extended or you could begin to round. Again, any amount. I don't want to push it. I'm going pretty easy today. It can also be nice to do a little sway. Yeah, I give you these suggestions of postures or movements to do, but as we tap into that, the trust of that inner teacher, the more we tap in, the more we trust. So we feel into that. That's part of the moving away from rigidity is allowing those walls that separate us from ourself, our true nature, to topple. So begin to come up now if you'd like. If you want to stay, the only reason I'm bringing you out is because the time's almost finished, but you know, you're in your home, so you can keep on practicing if you want to. And then you can begin to come to a seat if you'd like to, or lie down. Whatever position you find yourself in, just simply notice the effect our practice together has had on your body and mind. And may our practice together benefit all beings. May the peace we find benefit all beings. May we create a field of peace, compassion, and love wherever we go. Namaste. Thank you all so much for coming to the first week of our yoga mantra and meditation. And yeah, I'll stick around here if anybody has any questions, but and throughout the week, if you have any questions, please email me. I really love talking about these things, so don't hesitate. So thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Yeah, have a nice night.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much. That was just lovely.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.